I never believed in fate. Not until the night it came knocking wrapped in silk shadows, carrying my name like it had been waiting for me all along. But let me start at the beginning, before everything I thought I knew unraveled. The rain had been falling for 3 straight days, thick sheets pounding against the old brick of my apartment building. My city always felt heavy when it rained, streets slick with oil, streetlights drowning in halos of gold. The world both washed clean and dirtier than ever. I was sitting by my narrow kitchen window, clutching a chipped mug of lukewarm coffee, when I saw it, a shadow, not the kind cast by cars or swaying branches. This one was deliberate, still, watching Dot at first. I thought I was imagining things. I'd been running on too little sleep, living off coffee and vending machine snacks, while juggling my shifts at the bookstore and the late-night cleaning job I hated. I was exhausted enough to hallucinate. But when the shadow shifted just a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye, I froze. A man stood across the street, too far to make out clearly. His posture was rigid, tall, commanding, and though his face was lost to the dark, I felt it, his eyes were on me. The strange thing, the moment I noticed him, the rain stopped hammering the roof. The city sounds dimmed, muffled, like the world itself was holding its breath. And then he was gone. I didn't tell anyone about it. Who could I tell? My co-workers already thought I was strange enough, with my habit of writing poems in the margins of old receipts and staring too long at the moon. But that night, when I finally collapsed into bed, the dreams came. They weren't ordinary dreams, not the kind that melted into fragments by morning. These were vivid, too sharp to fade. I was standing in the middle of a vast forest, the trees so tall they swallowed the sky. A silver mist curled low over the ground, glowing faintly under the light of a full moon. And then I heard it a howl, long, mournful, and powerful enough to rattle my bones. From the mist, a pair of golden eyes appeared. Not human, not safe, yet I couldn't look away. Something in me responded, deep and primal, as though the sound had unlocked a part of me I didn't know existed. My chest tightened, my breath quickened, and just as the creature stepped forward, its massive silhouette breaking through the fog, I woke up gasping. My sheets twisted around me like chains. The dreams didn't stop. Night after night, I returned to the same forest. The same eyes, the same howl echoing through me. I'd wake with my heart racing, my skin hot, my throat dry. And always those golden eyes lingered behind my eyelids, haunting me. By the 4th night, I started to feel like I was being pulled towards something. Like the dream wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to someone else. On the 5th night, it happened. I had just finished my shift at the bookstore. The air was damp, the streets shimmering under streetlights. My breath rose in pale clouds as I wrapped my coat tighter and started the long walk home. The city was quieter than usual, unsettlingly so. My boots splashed through puddles, the sound echoing too loudly in the emptiness. And then behind me, a second set of footsteps, not slow, heavy, matching my pace. I quickened my stride. The footsteps did too. My pulse thudded in my ears. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I forced myself to stay calm, to not look back. Finally, at the corner of my street, I spun around. Nothing. The sidewalk stretched empty. The only movement the flicker of a broken neon sign across the road. I laughed nervously, shaking my head. I was losing it. Too many hours, too many dreams, too much paranoia. But when I turned back toward my building, my laughter died. A black car I had never seen before sat at the curb outside my apartment. Its windows were tinted so dark they reflected only the glow of the streetlight. The engine was silent, but I could feel it, the hum of power. Restrained but ready. And then the rear door opened. Man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark coat that moved like liquid shadows around him. His hair was black as ink, slicked back as though even the rain didn't dare touch him. But it was his eyes that froze me where I stood. Golden, piercing, exactly like the ones from my dreams. He didn't speak at first, just studied me as though I was a puzzle he'd already solved. My mouth went dry, my thoughts scattering like frightened birds. Finally, he spoke, his voice deep, rich, with an edge of command that silenced the world around us. Your life is about to change. Elena. My name on his lips felt both wrong and inevitable. Before I could demand how he knew it, he extended his hand. In it was an envelope sealed with silver wax, the emblem of a wolf pressed deep into its surface. An invitation, he said softly, almost kindly. One you cannot refuse. And though my instincts screamed danger, though every part of me wanted to slam my door and pretend this never happened, my hand reached for the envelope anyway. The moment my fingers brushed the wax, a chill raced up my spine, sharp and undeniable. And from somewhere in the distance, echoing faintly through the night, came the sound of a howl. Low. Haunting. Too close. I froze. My blood ran cold. The man's golden eyes glinted in the streetlight, unblinking. Welcome to your destiny, he whispered. I couldn't bring myself to open the envelope right away. That night, after the stranger vanished back into his sleek black car, I locked my apartment door twice and dropped the silver-sealed letter on my kitchen table like it was something alive, something that might bite if I touched it again. The wolf emblem pressed into the wax seemed to glow faintly under the overhead light, as though it carried a pulse of its own. Every time I glanced at it, my stomach turned. I told myself I'd burn it, tear it apart, anything to erase the memory. But I didn't. Instead, I sat in silence, staring at the envelope until dawn bled through the blinds. The next morning, I tried to shake it off, pretend it hadn't happened. At the bookstore where I worked, everything felt too normal. The bell over the door jingled as usual. The same elderly woman came in at noon to buy her crossword puzzles. The same boy from the coffee shop down the street left his damp umbrella dripping on the carpet while he browsed fantasy novels. But underneath that normalcy, I felt it. The shift. My coworker, Marcy, wrinkled her nose when I walked in. Rough night? She asked, squinting at me like she saw something crawling under my skin, mumbled something about not sleeping well, and went to restock the shelves. But as I slid books into place, I realized her eyes hadn't followed me in the casual way they usually did. She'd studied me, like she knew something. By the afternoon, the whispers started. 2 customers at the back corner lowered their voices when I passed. Their words carried just enough for me to catch fragments. That's her. Looks ordinary. Doesn't seem like... He'll protect her now. My throat tightened. I turned sharply, pretending to rearrange a display, but when I looked at them fully, their faces blurred in my memory, like my mind couldn't hold on to their features. I blinked, and they were gone. No bell at the door. No footsteps. Just gone. That evening, the city felt different. I kept my head down as I walked home, but the streets seemed to ripple with tension, the air thicker, heavier. Every sound, the hiss of tires through puddles, the distant clatter of a train rang sharper, cutting through me in ways they never had before. Halfway home, I realized I wasn't alone. At first. It was subtle. A shuffle of movement in my periphery, a whisper of footsteps that matched mine. But when I quickened my pace, the sound followed, never falling behind. I spun around, my breath catching. The sidewalk stretched empty. Streetlights buzzed faintly. No one. But I swore I felt eyes on me. Not just watching claiming. When I finally reached my apartment, I slammed the door, heart pounding, and leaned against it until my breathing steadied. The envelope still sat on the kitchen table, untouched. Except, I froze. It wasn't where I'd left it. I could swear I'd placed it squarely in the center of the table the night before. Now it sat at the edge, angled toward me like an invitation waiting to be taken. I backed away slowly, my pulse hammering. "This isn't happening," I whispered, but the air around me disagreed. A draft curled through the room, though every window was shut. The shadows seemed longer, darker, clinging to the corners like smoke. And then faint but unmistakable, I heard it. A whisper. My name. Elena. The sound was neither inside nor outside. It was everywhere at once, threading through my bones, cold and intimate. I stumbled backward, knocking my mug off the counter. It shattered on the floor, the crash echoing too loudly in the silence. The whisper stopped, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever had spoken, hadn't left. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on me. My dreams returned sharper, hungrier. The forest again, the mist, the golden eyes watching from the shadows. But this time, something was different. The wolf didn't stay hidden. It stepped forward, massive and sleek, its fur blacker than night. Power radiated from it in waves, and when its gaze locked onto mine, I felt my knees weaken. It didn't attack. It didn't growl. Instead, it lowered its head, bowing. And then it spoke, not in words I understood, but in a language older than time, carried on the wind, seeping straight into my heart. When I jolted awake, my pillow was damp with tears. The following days blurred together in fragments of unease. At work, more customers stared at me strangely, whispering to each other in tones that died the second I turned toward them. Once, I caught a glimpse of a tall man with dark hair watching me from across the street, but when a bus passed by and I looked again, he was gone. At night, the dreams grew stronger. The wolf was no longer just watching. It circled me, testing, waiting. And each time I woke with my body trembling, my skin burning as though the dream had left marks behind. I stopped telling myself it was exhaustion. This wasn't normal. This wasn't coincidence. Something was happening to me. On the 7th night after receiving the envelope, I finally gave in. My fingers shook as I broke the silver seal and slid out the thick card inside. The paper smelled faintly of smoke and cedar, like a forest trapped in ink. The words were written in elegant, deliberate script. Elena Marlowe, your presence is required at Blackthorn Manor. Midnight. The new moon. You will be collected. No signature. But I didn't need one. I already knew who it was from. I sat frozen, the letter clutched in my hands, when I heard it again. Footsteps outside my window. Slow. Patient. I forced myself to the glass. The street below was empty, but at the edge of the lamplight, a shape lingered. Not a man this time. Too large, too hunched, too wild. A wolf. Its eyes glowed faintly, catching the light. And though it was too far for me to hear it, I swore its lips curled into a knowing grin. The air in my lungs turned to ice, because I realized the truth. The shadows weren't following me. They were waiting. And whatever Blackthorn wanted, I wasn't being invited. I was being claimed. The invitation wouldn't leave me alone. I folded it, hid it in a drawer, shoved it under old bills and receipts. Yet no matter where I placed it, my eyes kept finding it, like it was burning through wood and paper, demanding attention. But it wasn't just the letter anymore. The world itself had changed. At the bookstore, little things went wrong. Shelves I knew I'd straightened leaned crooked again. Stacks of books toppled without reason, though the air was still. One morning, when I opened early, I found a single volume lying in the middle of the floor. A book I hadn't seen in years. Its cracked spine read, "Legends of the Forgotten Moon." I knelt to pick it up, my fingers brushing the dusty cover, and a shiver rattled through me. The book had been out of print for decades, yet here it was waiting for me. Flipping through the brittle pages, I stopped on an illustration that stole my breath. A wolf, black as shadow, golden eyes gleaming. My wolf. Below it, in faded ink, were words written like prophecy. When the moon wanes and silence falls, the chosen will hear the call. Blood and bond shall bind her fate. No door, no death can make her wait. The letters swam on the page, twisting as though alive. My stomach turned. I slammed the book shut and shoved it under the counter, my hands shaking. I told myself it was coincidence. Just coincidence. But I didn't believe it. That night, I walked home faster than usual, hugging my coat to my chest. The streets felt emptier, the air sharper. Halfway down my block, a stray dog padded out from the alley. Mangy, ribs showing, eyes dull. It limped toward me, and my heart ached at the sight. But when it reached the glow of the streetlight, the dog stopped. Its head tilted, its eyes flickered just for an instant with unnatural gold. Then it bared its teeth, not in hunger, in recognition. I stumbled back, my pulse roaring in my ears. The animal gave a single low growl, then bolted into the night. I stood frozen, cold sweat dripping down my spine. Something wasn't right. Even the animals knew. The next day, the whispers started again, only louder this time. In the coffee shop near the bookstore, two men at the back table stopped talking when I walked in. One of them leaned closer to the other, whispering urgently, "She doesn't know. She's not ready. Shouldn't be here." The words scraped at my nerves. I turned toward them, but their faces seemed to blur, just like before. Shadows clung to them, bending the light. When I blinked, their table was empty. I nearly dropped my coffee cup. The barista gave me a puzzled look, as though I'd gone pale. "You okay, Elena?" she asked. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired." But I wasn't tired. I was unraveling. By the third night of unease, the dreams came again. The forest stretched endless, the mist curling around my ankles. The wolf was closer now, his golden eyes burning with a fierce, terrible beauty. But something had changed. Behind him, carved into the bark of the trees, were symbols. Marks I didn't recognize, circles split by claws, spirals dripping like ink. Each one pulsed faintly with light, as though alive. When I reached out to touch one, the wolf growled. Not a warning, something else. A command. The sound shook me awake, gasping, heart slamming against my ribs. And when I sat up, I saw it. A mark, etched into the condensation on my window. The same spiral I'd seen in the dream. I scrambled from bed, panic surging. The window was locked. No one could have been inside. But the mark was there, glowing faintly, before it melted into dripping water. I pressed my hands against my face, trying to breathe. "This isn't real," I whispered. "This can't be real." But the truth was clawing closer with every passing second. The breaking point came in the grocery store. I was reaching for a carton of milk when a voice whispered directly in my ear, "Don't go to the manor." I spun around, nearly dropping the carton. The aisle was empty, except for an old woman hunched over a basket of fruit. She turned her head toward me. Her eyes were cloudy, her hands trembling, but her voice was sharp when she repeated, "Don't go. He'll ruin you. He ruins them all." My heart thundered. "What are you talking about?" But she only shook her head, muttering to herself. When I blinked, she was gone. Basket, fruit, everything. I stood alone in the aisle, my hands numb around the milk. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the invitation in front of me, the wolf's emblem glinting in the dim light. Every instinct told me to destroy it, to run, to disappear before whatever this was swallowed me whole. But another part of me, a part I didn't recognize, ached to open it again, to see what lay beyond the words. The silence pressed heavy around me, broken only by the ticking clock, and then the whispers returned. "Elena, chosen." The voices came from everywhere. The walls, the floor, the air. I clamped my hands over my ears, shaking, whispering, "Stop, stop." But when I opened my eyes, I saw it. The mark, scratched deep into the wood of my table this time, right beside the invitation. The same spiral from my dream. Fresh, raw. I reached out with trembling fingers, brushing the groove. Splinters bit into my skin. It was real. Someone or something had marked me. And with every whisper, every omen, every shadow that clung to my world, my suspicion deepened. This wasn't fate knocking at my door. This was a trap tightening. The night air was heavier than usual, thick with damp mist that clung to my skin like a second coat. I told myself I was only going out for milk and bread, something ordinary to chase away the weight of symbols and whispers that had been following me. But every step along the slick pavement felt like I was walking towards something, like the shadows were guiding me, not the other way around. The city should have been familiar. I'd walked these streets 1,000 times. Yet tonight the streetlights flickered strangely, leaving pockets of darkness where there should have been none. The corners seemed deeper, stretched longer, and in one of those corners I saw him, or maybe felt him first. The moment my eyes drifted across the street, my chest constricted. A figure stood half hidden beneath a lamppost, though the light bent strangely, refusing to illuminate him fully. Tall, still, watching. The same magnetic presence that had haunted my dreams, my windows, my nights. I froze mid-step, the grocery list in my pocket forgotten. For one heartbeat, I thought I imagined him. The rain-slick street, the mist, the fatigue, it could all be playing tricks. But then he moved, just slightly, enough to confirm he was real. And he was watching me. I tried to turn away, to pretend I hadn't noticed, but my body betrayed me. My gaze kept slipping back, caught in his shadow like a moth circling a flame. I couldn't see his face, not really, just the sharp outline of his jaw, the way his coat moved with an almost unnatural fluidity. But even from this distance, the air between us seemed charged, vibrating with something I didn't understand. Something that terrified me. Something that thrilled me. My pulse quickened. My feet refused to move. Then, without warning, a car passed between us, its headlights blinding for a split second. When the light cleared, the figure was gone. Vanished. The street was empty, but the pull remained, lodged in my chest like a hook. Back at my apartment, I paced restlessly, replaying the moment again and again. I hadn't seen him clearly, yet his presence clung to me as though I'd brushed against him in the flesh. My skin tingled, my breath caught whenever I closed my eyes. Who was he? Or maybe the better question was, what was he? Because nothing about the encounter felt human. It felt older, wilder, as if the dreams I'd been having had slipped into the waking world. I tried to distract myself, flipping through a half-read novel, making tea, even turning on the TV. But none of it helped. The shadows in the corners of my apartment seemed to shift with each flicker of the screen. And then it happened again. That voice. Elena? Soft. Low. So close I swore I felt the warmth of breath against my ear. I spun, nearly dropping my cup. My apartment was empty. The window rattled faintly in the wind. But no one was there. Still, the air carried it, that same presence I'd felt on the street. I pressed my palms to my temples, whispering, I'm losing my mind. But the truth was heavier. I wasn't losing my mind. I was losing my distance. The following morning, I nearly convinced myself it had been stress, lack of sleep, my imagination running wild until I stepped outside. The first thing I saw was a mark scratched into the metal of my apartment door. The spiral again. The same from my dreams. But this time, a smear of black ash clung to it, faintly warm when I touched it, as though whoever or whatever had left. It had only just gone. My neighbors bustled past without noticing. No one else saw it. No one else reacted. The world carried on. But my world tilted further off balance. That evening, I went to the bookstore for my shift, trying to bury myself in routine. But halfway through, a man I'd never seen before entered. He wasn't remarkable at first glance, plain clothes. Dark hair, but something about him set my nerves on edge. He wandered the aisles aimlessly, yet every time I looked up, his eyes were already on me. When he finally approached the counter, he set a single book down. The Wolves of Blackthorn Manor. I blinked at the title. We don't stock this, I whispered before I could stop myself. But the book was right there, its cover cracked, its pages yellow. The man smiled faintly, a humorless smile. You should read it. Before I could reply, he turned and walked out. The bell over the door jingled once. When I rushed after him, the sidewalk outside was empty. Gone. Again. I stood in the doorway, clutching the strange book, the whispers of the street curling around me like smoke. That night, back in my apartment, I opened it. The first page was blank. The second carried a single line, handwritten in dark ink. He's closer than you think. My blood ran cold. I slammed it shut, dropping it on the floor. My hands shook as I glanced toward the window, half expecting to see golden eyes glowing from the darkness, but the glass reflected only me, pale, frightened, changing. Didn't sleep. Instead, I sat curled on my couch, the book lying unopened beside me, my eyes darting to every creak and whisper of the night. At some point, exhaustion dragged my head to the cushion. My eyes fluttered closed, and when they opened again, he was there. Not fully, not close enough to touch, but I saw him, framed by the shadows of my half-dream, half-reality. Tall, commanding. His face still hidden, but his eyes burned gold. I gasped awake, clutching my chest. My apartment was empty, but the air still carried him, like the echo of footsteps that had only just faded. I should have been terrified. And I was. Yet beneath the fear, curiosity gnawed at me, sharper than ever. Because if this was the man who had sent the invitation, then why did I feel like I already belonged to him? The bookstore was unusually quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that made every sound the turn of a page, the faint hum of the old lights feel amplified. I was reshelving the strange book I'd been given, The Wolves of Blackthorn Manor, when the door chimed. The soft jingle cut through the silence, but for some reason, it sank into my chest like a warning bell. I looked up. And he was there. Not a shadow this time. Not half seen through fog or dream. A man. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored black coat that seemed to absorb the light around him. His hair was dark, his features sharp, sculpted, commanding. But it was his eyes that froze me in place, golden, glowing faintly, like embers buried deep within. The world seemed to bend around him. Evening, he said, his voice low, threaded with something I couldn't quite name. Not menace exactly, not warmth either. Something in between. Something dangerous. My throat went dry. Can I help you? His gaze held me still, as though I'd been pinned. I believe you already have. I blinked. I don't understand. You will, he replied, stepping closer. The bell above the door had already fallen silent, yet my heart thundered in my ears. Each step he took pulled me deeper into his orbit, as if some invisible gravity tethered us. I should have looked away, should have stepped back, but I didn't, I couldn't. He stopped just a few feet away, close enough that I could smell the faintest trace of something wild clinging to him, cedar, smoke, and rain. My knees trembled. Why me? The words slipped out before I could stop them. His lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. You ask as though you already know there is a reason. I've seen you, I whispered, my voice unsteady. In the shadows. In my dreams. His eyes burned brighter at that. And I've seen you long before your dreams began, Elena. The sound of my name on his tongue sent a shiver racing down my spine. I should have demanded answers. How he knew me, why I'd been haunted by him. Instead, I just stood there, my pulse quickening, caught between terror and something else I refused to name. He tilted his head, studying me with a focus that felt almost predatory. Yet beneath the sharpness, I glimpsed something softer. Something that unsettled me even more. You don't belong in this small, fragile world, he murmured. Not really. You felt it, haven't you? That pull, that hunger for something beyond the ordinary. I swallowed hard. He wasn't wrong. That hearing it aloud, from him, made the air between us crackle with something dangerous. I don't even know who you are. I managed to say. His answer was simple. Call me Lucian. The name rolled through me like thunder. Lucian. I repeated under my breath, testing it on my tongue, the sound both foreign and strangely familiar. He stepped closer still. My breath caught. I should have moved, but my feet were rooted. You shouldn't be here, I said, though it came out softer than I intended. You, whatever this is, it's not normal. No, he agreed, his voice brushing against me like velvet over steel. Nothing about us is normal. Us? I whispered, the word trembling in the space between us. For the first time, his expression shifted. Something flickered in those golden eyes. Something raw and unguarded, before he masked it again. Yes, he said simply, with a finality that made my stomach twist. I shook my head, trying to break the spell. You don't even know me. He leaned in, his presence wrapping around me, both suffocating and intoxicating. I know enough. The heat of his words brushed against my cheek. My body betrayed me. Goosebumps rising, my breath quickening. It felt wrong. It felt right. It felt inevitable. The bell above the door jingled again suddenly, breaking the moment. A customer entered, glancing between us with oblivious eyes. I stepped back quickly, my hands shaking, my chest tight. Lucian's eyes lingered on me for one last, searing moment before he straightened, adjusting his coat. I'll see you again, Elena, he murmured, low enough that only I could hear. And then he left, the door swinging shut behind him. I stood frozen, my heart pounding like I'd run miles. The world around me buzzed back to life, the fluorescent lights, the rustle of pages, the sound of the customer clearing their throat. But I felt like I'd been carved out and remade. He was real. And worse. He wasn't just a shadow passing through my life. He was here for me. I leaned against the counter, My legs unsteady, my breath uneven. Part of me screamed to stay away, to bury this encounter deep and never look back. But another part louder, hungrier, ached for the next time I would see him. And that was what terrified me most. I told myself I could forget him, that if I buried myself in routine, my shifts at the bookstore, grocery runs, laundry piles, I could scrub away the golden eyes that burned holes in my sleep. But by the third night, I knew I was lying to myself, because my dreams had sharpened no longer soft shadows or whispers. No, they were vivid, brutal. A forest I had never walked, lit by a bruised moon. Wolves circling me, their eyes gleaming like coins in the dark. And always Lucian at the center, his hand outstretched, his gaze a command I couldn't disobey. When I woke, the scent of cedar and smoke lingered on my pillow. By morning, the world itself felt strange. Coffee tasted too bitter. Colors seemed sharper, almost painful. The sound of the street outside my apartment rang too loudly, each honk or shout cutting into me like glass. Even people looked different, distant, like they were moving through water while I was moving through fire. I was unraveling. And worse, I knew exactly who to blame. On the fourth day it began. The first accident. I was walking down the narrow steps to the subway when a stranger bumped my shoulder. It should have been nothing, an ordinary shove in the crowded morning rush. But the push sent me reeling harder than it should have, my foot slipping. For one terrifying heartbeat, I felt the empty air beneath me, the tracks waiting below. Then dash an invisible grip, strong, unyielding. Something yanked me back against the platform wall, saving me by inches. I gasped, heart hammering. But when I turned, the stranger was gone. Only the faintest trace of cedar smoke lingered in the air. By evening, I tried to dismiss it, tried to blame my imagination, my exhaustion. Until the bookstore. I was behind the counter when the shelf nearest me groaned. Books toppled in a cascade, spines snapping open like wings. I jumped back, papers scattering, my pulse racing. When I bent to gather them, one book lay apart from the rest, not from our shelves, not from anywhere I'd seen. Its cracked cover bore no title. But when I opened it, words scrawled themselves across the page in fresh ink. You cannot run from fate. The pen strokes glistened weightly, as though just written. The book slipped from my hands. That night, I didn't dare sleep, but exhaustion claimed me anyway, dragging me into a dream so sharp it felt real. The forest again, only this time the wolves came closer. Their growls vibrated through my bones. Lucian stood beyond them, golden eyes fixed on me. You are marked, he said, his voice carrying like thunder. The world will not let you go back. I screamed myself awake, heart in my throat. The dream faded, but my arm burned. When I pulled back my sleeve, a thin line, a scratch, shaped like a crescent seared red across my skin. Dream or not, it had followed me back. By now, my life no longer belonged to me. Even my friends noticed. You look pale, Maria whispered at work. Like you haven't slept in weeks. I forced a smile. Just stress. But I could tell she didn't believe me, and neither did I. Because as she spoke, I saw it her reflection in the window behind her. Only, it wasn't hers. For a split second, it was Lucian's face staring back at me, his gaze burning through the glass. When I blinked, Maria's reflection returned. Oblivious, I nearly dropped the stack of receipts in my hands. By the weekend, I stopped trying to explain. The world had already chosen its side. Lights flickered when I entered rooms. Dogs barked at me on the street, hackles raised, as if they smelled something not quite human in me. Doors creaked open without wind. Whispers followed me in crowded spaces, my name spoken in voices I didn't recognize. And then came the real danger. It was late. and I was walking home from work. The rain had returned, slicking the pavement, turning the streets into silver mirrors. My umbrella trembled in the wind as I hurried across the nearly empty block. Halfway down, I heard footsteps heavy, deliberate. I turned. A man stood under the dripping awning of a closed shop watching me. His eyes gleamed strangely, but not like Lucien's. These were darker, hungrier. Evening, he drawled, his voice slurred. He took a step forward. Instinct screamed at me to run, but my feet rooted. Something was wrong with him. Not drunk, not high. Something else. His body moved too fast, too sharp, closing the space between us in heartbeats. His hand shot out, catching my wrist in a bruising grip. "Don't!" I gasped, struggling, but his strength was unnatural. His breath hot and foul, his pupils stretched oddly, gleaming as if lit from within. "You're not supposed to be out alone," he hissed, his grip tightening. "Not with his mark on you." My blood turned to ice. "What mark?" He leaned close, sniffing my skin like an animal. "The Alpha's scent. You belong to him now." I tried to scream, but his hand slammed over my mouth. The world spun. Panic clawed my throat, and then the air split. A growl tore through the night, low and feral, vibrating in my chest. The man's head snapped up just as a shadow dropped between us, ripping me free. Lucien. His eyes blazed molten gold, brighter than I'd ever seen. His body radiated heat and fury, every line of him sharp and lethal. The stranger stumbled back, his face twisting in fear. "This isn't your hunt," Lucien snarled, his voice no longer human. "Leave her," the man hissed, backing into the shadows. Then he was gone, swallowed by the night. I stood trembling, pressed against the wall, my wrist throbbing where the stranger had held me. Lucien turned to me slowly, his gaze still glowing, his chest rising and falling like a predator holding back the shift. "You shouldn't have been alone," he said, his voice softer now, but no less commanding. My words broke, my throat dry. What was he? His gaze lingered on me, unreadable, then softened just slightly. "Not your concern," he said, but his hand warm, steady brushed my wrist where the bruise was already forming. My body betrayed me, leaning into his touch even as my mind screamed to run. Danger wrapped around me, undeniable. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't afraid of Lucien. I was afraid of how much I wanted him there. The rain had softened by the time Lucien walked me back to my apartment. I didn't protest, not after what had happened. My wrist still throbbed from the stranger's grip, and every time I closed my eyes, I felt the heat of his words. "The Alpha's scent is on you." I wanted to demand answers, to shake the truth out of Lucien. But as we moved through the lamplit streets, words wouldn't come. His presence silenced the storm inside me, if only for a moment. At my door, I fumbled for the keys, my hands trembling. He stood a few steps behind, his coat glistening with rain, his golden eyes dimmed but still burning faintly in the dark. "You shouldn't leave your window unlocked," he said quietly, his voice threaded with something protective, something that sounded dangerously close to care. I turned sharply. "How do you know my window was unlocked?" His lips curved, the faintest hint of a smile. "Because I've watched you fall asleep more nights than you realize." My breath caught. The words should have terrified me. Instead, heat flushed through my chest. "Why?" I whispered. His gaze held mine, steady, unflinching. "Because the world around you is changing, Elena. And whether you admit it or not, you're already part of it." Inside, the silence of my apartment pressed close. He didn't follow me in at first. He lingered at the threshold, his presence filling the space even from outside. "You don't have to stay," I said, though my voice betrayed me. "Don't I?" he murmured. And then, with a subtle tilt of his head, he stepped in. The air shifted immediately. Warmer. Heavier. My little apartment felt smaller, as though the walls bent inward to accommodate him. We didn't talk much at first. I busied myself with the mundane kettle on, cups clinking, the faint hiss of steam. But the ordinary felt absurd now, pouring tea for a man whose eyes glowed like molten fire. Still, I did it, because it gave me something to hold on to. When I handed him a cup, his fingers brushed mine light, deliberate. A jolt ran through me so sharp I almost dropped the porcelain. He noticed. Of course he did. His lips curved faintly, knowingly, as though my reactions amused him. Who was he? I finally asked, wrapping my hands around my own cup to steady them. The man on the street. The one who knew about you. Lucian's expression darkened, shadows flickering across his face. "Not a man," he said. "Not anymore." I swallowed. "Then what?" His gaze lifted to mine, gold sparking like fire catching wind. "The kind of thing you're safer not naming. The kind of thing that hunts what belongs to others." The word "belongs" struck me harder than it should have. "I don't belong to you," I said quickly. Defensively, something unreadable crossed his face: amusement, pain, desire. "You say that," he murmured. "And yet here I am." Silence stretched. My pulse thundered in my ears. And then, unexpectedly, he set his cup down. "You're not safe here." "Not anymore." I bristled. "Safe from what?" "From you?" His jaw tightened. "From everything that comes with me." The words should have made me afraid. But instead, I felt something else, an ache, deep and unfamiliar, to understand him. To peel away the armor and see what lay beneath. "Then tell me," I said softly. "Who are you, really?" For a long moment he said nothing. His gaze drifted to the window, to the rain streaking down the glass. Finally, he spoke, his voice low. "I was born into power, into blood. A dynasty older than this city, older than its stones. My family ruled not through wealth alone, but through something greater, something primal." His words sank into me like roots burrowing deep. "You mean the stories, the whispers?" "Not whispers," he corrected. His eyes locked onto mine again, molten and fierce. "Truth. I am Alpha, Elena, not of a pack you'll find in books or fables, but of a bloodline that still walks in shadow." The room seemed to tilt. My breath caught. My skin tingled, every hair rising. "Alpha," I repeated faintly. As in the very thing you've been dreaming about," he finished, his voice wrapping around me like velvet and steel. I should have recoiled. Should have laughed, denied, screamed. Instead, I felt something dangerous stir inside me. A pull magnetic and undeniable, and he felt it too. I saw it in the way his jaw clenched, in the way he looked at me like I was both salvation and sin. "Why me?" I whispered Dot for the first time. His composure faltered. His eyes softened, the Alpha stripped away for a fleeting second, leaving behind only a man. Because fate doesn't ask permission. The kettle clicked off, forgotten. The rain outside softened into mist. The world narrowed until it was just him and me, standing in the charged silence of my apartment. I wanted to step back. I wanted to step closer. My body didn't know which instinct to follow. He leaned in slightly, not enough to touch, just enough for his presence to wrap around me like heat. "You feel it too," he murmured, though I couldn't deny it. My silence was an answer. And then, just as quickly, the moment shattered. A sharp noise, a low growl echoed from somewhere deep inside him. His shoulders tensed, his eyes flaring brighter. He turned away from me sharply, as if hiding something. But I saw it. For the briefest heartbeat, his hand, the one resting on the table, changed. Not fully, not grotesquely, but enough. The nails, elongating into claws, the skin rippling with something primal beneath. I gasped, stepping back. Lucian closed his fist quickly, the change vanishing almost instantly. His chest rose and fell sharply, like a man barely holding himself together. Our eyes met. His burned with both warning and confession. "You wanted the truth," he said hoarsely. "Now you've seen it." The air between us shifted after that night by the lake. I couldn't unsee what I had glimpsed, the way his reflection wavered unnaturally, the flash of light in his eyes that wasn't human, the shadows that seemed to move toward him instead of away. Every instinct inside me screamed that I had stepped too close to something ancient, dangerous. Yet I couldn't pull away. I told myself I should stay away from him, that normal girls with normal lives didn't get caught up with billionaire strangers who appeared in the woods like ghosts. But my heart wouldn't listen. Whenever I closed my eyes, I saw him, Adrian. His name had become a silent storm inside me, spoken only in thought, never out loud. Still, suspicion grew like a thorn in my chest. It started with little things. When he walked beside me, the forest went strangely quiet, as if even the crickets dared not sing in his presence. His hand brushed mine once briefly, and my skin burned for hours as if I'd been marked. And then there were the dreams, always him. Always chasing. Always catching. I'd wake with his name on my lips, trembling with a need I couldn't explain. One evening, as I walked home through the dimly lit streets, I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate, too heavy to be my own echo. I turned, expecting to find Adrian, but no one was there. Still, the hair on the back of my neck rose. When I reached my apartment, there was something waiting. A folded piece of paper slid under my door. My breath caught as I bent to pick it up. The handwriting was bold, jagged, almost claw-like. "Stay away from him. He is not what you think." My stomach twisted. I read it 3 times before shoving it into my pocket, my heart pounding so hard I thought my ribs might crack. Who had left it? A jealous rival? A protective stranger? Or someone who knew the truth about Adrian? The next day I confronted him, not directly, but in the way I lingered too long on his every movement. "Who are you really?" I finally asked, my voice low, my hands trembling as we sat across from each other in the cafe he insisted on meeting at. The world around us bustled with normality cups clinking, conversations flowing, but it felt like we were in a bubble, a fragile shell holding in something that could shatter at any second. He smiled faintly, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You wouldn't believe me if I told you. Try me." My voice was sharper than I intended. His gaze locked on mine, and for a heartbeat I thought I saw something flicker there. Not just emotion, something wild, something not of this world. He leaned forward, close enough that his breath warmed my skin. "You're safer not knowing." But the way he said it only fueled my fire. Safe? I didn't feel safe with him. I felt alive. I felt seen in a way I never had before. Later that night, I dreamed again, but this time it was clearer. I saw Adrian standing in the woods, his shirt torn, his body trembling as if some invisible force consumed him. His eyes glowed silver, his teeth sharp, his hands clawed. And when he turned toward me, I swore I heard a growl ripple through the darkness. I woke up gasping. The following morning, I spotted him outside my window. Just a shadow, barely there. When I rushed outside, no one was there. but claw marks scored the bark of the tree nearest my building. They were deep, too deep for any man's hand. Fragments of the truth swirled around me like shards of broken glass. A warning note. Eyes that glowed. Claw marks where no animal had been. Dreams that felt more like memories borrowed from someone else's mind. And yet, my heart betrayed me. Despite the fear gnawing at my chest, I longed for him. I wanted his secrets. I wanted the whole truth, no matter how dark it might be. The breaking point came when we met again unexpectedly, as always. I had gone to the bookstore near the edge of town, hoping to bury myself in anything ordinary. But as I turned down an aisle, there he was, tall, brooding, a storm wrapped in skin. "You've been following me," I accused before I could stop myself. His lips curved into that maddening half-smile. "Or maybe you've been following me." I hated the way my pulse raced at his words. "I found a note. Someone warned me about you." For the first time, his expression shifted serious, dangerous. "What did it say?" "That you're not what I think you are." His eyes darkened. He stepped closer. Close enough that the shelves around us seemed to tremble. "They're right." His voice was a whisper, but it hit me like thunder. I swallowed hard. "Then what are you?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached up, brushing a strand of hair from my face with a tenderness that contradicted the storm in his voice. "You don't want to know." But I did. I wanted to know everything. I stood frozen, every nerve in my body alive, every instinct torn between running and staying. His touch lingered too long, and in that moment, I knew the truth was closer than ever, but still just out of reach. When he finally pulled away, the air seemed colder, emptier. "Be careful who you trust," he said softly. "Even me." Then he was gone, leaving me surrounded by shelves of forgotten books and a heart that no longer belonged to me. I should have run. I should have listened to the warning. But all I could think was this Adrian wasn't human. And yet, I was already his. I told myself I wouldn't see him again. I told myself the note slipped under my door was proof that I was. Walking towards something I didn't understand. Something I should stay far away from. But I was lying to myself, because every night he came back to me, not in person, but in dreams. In those dreams, Adrian's eyes glowed like molten silver beneath the moon. His touch was fire, his voice thunder, his presence both a comfort and a threat. Sometimes he chased me through the woods, and no matter how far I ran, I ended up in his arms. Other times I stood in the middle of a storm, and he was the only still point, the only safe place. I woke from those dreams with my heart aching, my body trembling, and his name burning in my throat. And when I tried to live my days like nothing had changed, reality bled into those dreams. A flash of movement in the corner of my eye. A shadow lingering too long in an empty alley. Whispers in the wind, low and guttural, as if the trees themselves spoke of him. I tried to push it all away. I threw myself into work, into routine, into the illusion of normal life. I scrubbed my apartment until my hands blistered. I stayed late at the bookstore, shelving novels I didn't care to read. I even ignored the forest path, the one place that had always been my refuge, because the forest had become his. But it didn't matter what I did. He was everywhere. The worst was the night I went to dinner with friends. I thought surrounding myself with laughter, noise, and normal people would silence the strange pull inside me. But halfway through the meal, I caught a figure outside the restaurant window. Standing in the rain, watching Adrian. My fork clattered against the plate. No one else seemed to notice him, as if the storm outside had swallowed him whole. My friends asked if I was all right, if I'd seen a ghost. And maybe I had, because when I blinked, he was gone. That night, my dreams were sharper than ever. I dreamed I was in his world, his mansion, shadowed and vast, with windows opening onto endless forest. He led me down a hall lined with ancient portraits, their eyes following me. He touched my hand, and the walls themselves seemed to breathe. And when I whispered, "What are you?" his answer was not words, but a low, animal growl that vibrated through the floor, through me, until I gasped awake in my bed. I should have been terrified, but terror wasn't the only thing I felt. I wanted him, and wanting him made me hate myself. The pull was wrong. I knew it. Something deep inside me screamed that I was stepping closer to a precipice I would never return from. But when I thought of his eyes, his voice, his presence, I couldn't imagine stepping back. One evening, when the storm inside me was too loud to silence, I gave in. I found myself walking toward the forest, heart hammering, legs moving without my consent. The town behind me faded, and the night pressed close, heavy with mist and silence. And there he was, leaning against a tree as if he had been waiting for me. His shirt clung to him, damp with the night air, and his hair caught the dim silver of the moon. Those eyes, the ones that haunted my sleep, fixed on me with a fire I couldn't meet, couldn't escape. "You shouldn't be here," he said, his voice low, rough. I know. My words trembled, but I couldn't stay away. His jaw tightened, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then he stepped forward, closing the distance between us. The air shifted, warmer, charged, as if the forest itself held its breath. "You don't understand what I am," he murmured. "Then tell me." His hand hovered near mine, close enough that the heat of his skin reached me. But he didn't touch. "If I tell you, you won't look at me the same." "Maybe I already don't," I whispered. But it was a lie. The truth was, I looked at him too much, too often, with a hunger I didn't understand. He leaned closer, his breath brushing my cheek. "You're walking into a fire you can't put out. And let me burn." The words left me before I could stop them. My own audacity startled me, but not as much as the way his eyes flared in response, a flicker of silver like the dreams I'd seen. For a heartbeat, I thought he would kiss me. The pull between us was unbearable, my body leaning forward, my lips parted without thought. But he pulled back, his hand curling into a fist at his side. "You don't know what you're asking," he said, voice strained. "You don't know what I'll do if I lose control." And then, just as suddenly, he turned, his form melting into the shadows of the trees, leaving me breathless and trembling in the night. I stood there, staring into the dark, my heart beating too fast, my body aching with something I refused to name. I should have been relieved that he hadn't touched me, hadn't dragged me further into whatever world he lived in. But all I felt was the hollow ache of desire unfulfilled, the gnawing certainty that I would seek him again, no matter the warnings, no matter the danger. Because I was already his in ways I couldn't undo, and the temptation I faced now, I knew I could not ignore it forever. The air in town shifted after that night in the forest. I felt it in the way strangers' eyes lingered on me too long, in the way shadows stretched across the pavement when no light should have cast them, in the restless silence of nights that used to be calm. Something unseen pressed closer, as if the veil between the ordinary world and Adrian's world had thinned. And I was standing right in the middle of the tear dot at first. I thought it was paranoia, but the signs stacked too high to ignore. I started noticing unfamiliar cars parked near my apartment. Black, sleek, tinted windows. Always gone by morning, always back the next night. When I walked to the grocery store, I swore I heard footsteps echoing behind me, pausing whenever I turned. Even in the bookstore, I caught whispers, conversations that fell silent the moment I passed by Dot, and through it all, I felt Adrian's presence like a phantom heartbeat. Sometimes close, sometimes distant, but never gone. One evening, I found another note slipped beneath my door. This one wasn't a warning, it was a threat. Stay out of his world, or you'll be dragged down with him. The words chilled me, but what scared me most was the jagged symbol scrawled at the bottom. A mark shaped like a claw cutting through a crescent moon. When I showed it to Adrian the next time we met, because of course, despite my better judgment, I found myself seeking him again, his jaw clenched, and for the first time, I saw fear flicker across his face. "Where did you get this?" he demanded, his voice harsher than I'd ever heard it. It was slipped under my door. He cursed under his breath, eyes flashing. "They know about you. They?" I asked, my stomach twisting. "Who are they?" He didn't answer right away. His gaze shifted to the trees, to the dark beyond the clearing, as if expecting something to leap out at any second. "Adrian," I pressed, my voice trembling. "Tell me what's going on." Finally, he looked back at me. "I've tried to keep you out of it, but my world, it has enemies. And now, they've seen you with me. That makes you a target." The word stole my breath. A target. I wasn't just caught in something dangerous, I was marked by it. "Enemies?" I whispered. "What kind of enemies?" His lips pressed into a thin line. "The kind that don't forgive. The kind that don't stop until they have what they want." I should have run then. I should have begged him to let me go, to cut me free before I sank deeper. But instead, I asked the question that had been clawing at me since the night I met him. "What do they want from you?" His eyes darkened, and for a moment I thought he might finally tell me. But before he could speak, a low growl rippled through the trees. My blood froze. It wasn't the sound of any ordinary animal. It was deeper, layered, almost human in its fury. Adrian moved in front of me in an instant, his body tense, his head tilted toward the sound. Every line of him screamed predator, protector, danger. "Stay behind me," he ordered. The forest went deathly quiet. I clutched his arm, my nails digging into his skin, but he didn't flinch. His focus was locked on the darkness beyond the trees. Then movement. A pair of eyes glowed red in the distance. Not silver like Adrian's. Red, burning, hungry, fixed on us with feral intent. A chill raced down my spine. "Who is that?" I whispered. Adrian's voice was low, edged with steel. "An old rival. One who never forgave me." The red eyes blinked out, swallowed by the night. But the air remained charged, thick with menace, as though the forest itself held its breath. Adrian exhaled slowly, but his body remained rigid. "They're testing boundaries. They'll come closer next time." I stared at him, my pulse thundering. "What are you not telling me?" His gaze flicked to mine, raw and conflicted. "That you were never supposed to be part of this war. That the moment you stepped into my world, you became a piece on the board." The weight of his words pressed down on me. War, rivals, enemies with glowing red eyes. This wasn't just some hidden romance, this was survival. And I was caught in it. On the walk back to town, he stayed close, silent, his shoulders tense as if expecting an ambush. I wanted to demand answers, but something in his expression kept me quiet. That night, sleep didn't come easy. When it finally did, it wasn't restful. I dreamed of red eyes chasing me through the woods, of shadows with claws that reached for me, and always, just ahead, Adrian's silhouette, powerful, fierce, but slipping further away no matter how fast I ran. When I woke, there were faint scratches on my arm, 3 thin lines, burning against my skin. Not from the dream, from something real. I lay there trembling, realization washing over me like ice. The threat wasn't distant anymore. It was here. It was hunting me. And Adrian's enemies weren't just shadows in his past. They were rising, and they wanted me too. The scratches on my arm burned for days. No matter what ointment I used, no matter how carefully I bandaged them, they refused to heal. Instead, they pulsed faintly beneath my skin, glowing as if lit from within whenever moonlight touched them. I hid them beneath sleeves, telling myself it was only my imagination. But deep down, I knew it WSN single quads T. Adrian saw them the next time we met. His eyes widened, not with surprise but with recognition. "They've marked you," he whispered, his voice low and dangerous. I swallowed hard. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer immediately. His gaze swept over me, his jaw tightening as though fighting an inner war. Finally, he took my wrist gently, holding it up so the faint light shimmered against my skin. "This shouldn't be possible," he murmured. "Not for someone like you." "What do you mean, someone like me?" My heart thudded painfully. Adrian's eyes flicked to mine, silver flaring beneath the surface. "Your blood. It isn't ordinary." The words hollowed me out. Ordinary. That's all I have ever been. Ordinary family. Ordinary life. But the certainty in his voice left no room for denial. "What are you saying?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "What's wrong with me?" "Not wrong." He released my wrist, pacing as though the ground itself was too fragile beneath him. "Different. Different. Marked long before those scratches touched you." I stood frozen, my chest tightening. "You're not making sense." His gaze snapped back to me, fierce and unyielding. "Has no one ever told you about your family's past? About where you come from?" The question slammed into me like a blow. I shook my head slowly. "My parents died when I was young. My grandmother raised me, but she never spoke much about family history. She always said some doors should stay closed." Adrian's jaw clenched. "She was trying to protect you. Protect me from what?" He hesitated, then sighed, his shoulders sagging as if the weight of centuries pressed against him. "There's a prophecy. Older than this town, older than my kind. It speaks of blood that bridges two worlds, the human and the beast. Blood that can awaken power neither side can control." My pulse quickened, panic curling in my stomach. "And you think that's me?" "I don't think." His voice was grim. "I know." I stumbled back, shaking my head. "That's insane. I'm just me. I work in a bookstore. I pay my rent late. I burn toast. How could I be part of some ancient prophecy?" But even as the words tumbled out, I remembered things I'd tried to forget. My grandmother's whispered prayers on nights of the full moon. The way she locked the doors and drew heavy curtains when storms rolled in. The stories she told me as a child of wolves that walked as men, of women whose blood could command the night. I thought they were fairy tales. But were they warnings? Adrian stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "The enemies that haunt us, they know what you are. That's why they're after you. Not just because you're with me, but because your bloodline carries power they crave." I shook my head, my body trembling. "No, this can't be real." "It's already real." His hand brushed my arm, steadying me. "The mark proves it. They wouldn't waste their time otherwise." My throat went dry, memories flashing like broken glass. The night I first dreamed of silver eyes. The way the forest always seemed to call to me. The sense, buried deep, that I didn't quite belong in the ordinary world no matter how hard I tried. Pieces of me I'd ignored now screamed for attention. "What does the prophecy say?" I whispered. Adrian's eyes softened, but sorrow shadowed them. "It says the blood will be claimed, by light or by shadow. It will either bind with the Alpha who protects it, or fall into the hands of those who would use it to destroy us all." A shiver tore through me. "Claimed?" His silence said everything. "Claimed by him. or by his enemies. The word echoed in my chest, leaving me breathless. Claimed, not chosen, not free, as if destiny had written me into a story I never agreed to. Tears stung my eyes, unbidden. I never asked for this. I never wanted this. Adrian's hand reached for mine, hesitant, almost reverent. I know that the truth doesn't care what we want. It only waits to be faced. I yanked my hand back, panic clawing at me. So, I'm some prophecy, some bloodline freak. And what then? Do I just let you what? Protect me? Claim me? His eyes flared silver, raw emotion cutting through his restraint. I don't want to claim you. I want to save you. But the words tangled with the unspoken truth between us. That saving and claiming were closer than I dared admit. That his presence, his pull, was already entwined with my blood in ways I couldn't deny. I turned away, my chest heaving, the world spinning. Everything I thought I knew about myself, my past, my family shattered. And when I looked at the faintly glowing scratches again, I realized something that made my knees weaken. The mark didn't just burn. It pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat, as if it belonged to me. As if it had been waiting. The moment I saw Adrian standing at the edge of the clearing, I knew something was wrong. He wasn't relaxed, not even a fraction. His posture was taut, shoulders squared, eyes flicking constantly to the shadows beyond the trees. Even from a distance, I could sense the storm inside him. Adrian, I called softly, but he didn't turn immediately. When he did, his golden eyes met mine. That something in their depth made my stomach tighten. Worry? Fear? Or something else I couldn't name. You shouldn't be here, he said at last. His voice clipped. I had to see you, I replied, walking closer despite the chill in the air. I can't stop thinking about what's happening. About the scratches, the prophecy, everything. I need to understand. He didn't respond, just stepped aside, letting me through the trees to where he waited. Even his silence spoke volumes. Tension, danger, urgency. The forest felt alive, almost aware of our presence. Leaves rustled where there was no wind. Shadows twisted unnaturally between the trunks. And the feeling that we weren't alone grew heavier with every step. You trust me, don't you? Adrian finally asked. I hesitated. Every instinct in me screamed, yes, but my heart quivered. I want to, but I don't know if I can. Not everything. Not all of you, I understand. He nodded, but his expression didn't soften. You never will. Not completely. And that's the risk you take being close to me, being close to my world. I know, I said. Though my voice faltered. We stopped near a small clearing where the moonlight poured through the branches. He looked at me, then away, then back. The golden glow in his eyes seemed to pulse. I've kept things from you, he admitted, voice low, almost pained. Not because I don't trust you, but because some truths are too dangerous. What kind of truths? I asked, swallowing hard. About the prophecy, about the enemies, about me. The hesitation in his voice was sharp enough to cut. I felt my chest tighten. You don't have to tell me everything, I whispered, trying to convince myself. Just tell me enough to know I'm not walking blindly. He stepped closer, lowering his voice even further. There's a faction one older than me, older than my kind. They know your blood, Elena. They've been waiting for it. And they will not hesitate. Anything that comes between them and their goal, they destroy. And sometimes those things are innocent. The word innocent made my stomach twist. That was me. I was the innocent. And yet, I'd stepped directly into the fire. For a moment we stood silently, the forest pressing around us. the tension nearly tangible. Then he reached out just a hand, hovering near mine, almost inviting. "I need you to trust me," he said, soft but urgent. "Because if you don't, it could all fall apart." I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe in the magnetic pull that had drawn me to him from the start. I wanted to lean into the warmth behind his dangerous golden eyes and forget the threats outside. Forget the prophecy. Forget the scratches that pulsed against my skin. But ICOULDN single quotes T, because before I could take his hand, a rustling came from behind the trees. Shadows flickered. The hairs on my arms stood on end. I turned instinctively, my heart hammering. And that's when I saw her. A woman emerged from the darkness, cloaked in black. Her eyes were sharp, her movements precise. She stopped a few feet from us, and her lips curved into a slow, deliberate smile. "Adrian," she said, voice smooth, dangerous. "We meet again." His posture stiffened, his shoulders squaring. "You shouldn't be here," he growled. "And yet," she said, eyes flicking to me, "here I am." My heart dropped. The tension between Adrian and this stranger radiated like heat. I didn't know the history, but I could feel it. Something unspoken, dangerous, filled the air. "Who is she?" I asked, voice barely a whisper. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he stepped slightly in front of me, protective yet cautious. "She's complicated. Not an ally. Not exactly an enemy yet." The words did nothing to calm me. My chest tightened, a mix of fear and anger. I wanted to demand answers, but every instinct told me to stay quiet. This woman was dangerous, and Adrian's tense stance made it clear he wasn't bluffing. The stranger's smile widened. "You've grown close, haven't you?" she said, her gaze piercing mine. "Too close, maybe." Adrian's jaw clenched. "Step back." Her eyes flicked to him, then back to me. "Be careful whom you trust, little one. Sometimes the people who claim to protect you are the ones who put you in the greatest danger." Her words landed like a stone in my chest. The unease that had been building for days exploded inside me. Adrian's gaze hardened. "She's trying to confuse you. Or warn me," I said, my voice shaking. "Maybe she's right. Maybe I shouldn't trust you." For a heartbeat. His expression faltered. The golden glow in his eyes dimmed slightly, and something fragile in him trembled. Then he straightened, his presence rigid with control. "Then you'll learn the hard way," he said, voice low, dangerous, barely contained. "But know this, I have never lied to you about the danger." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to lean into his warmth, into the pull that had held me since the first moment. But the woman's words lingered. The forest seemed darker now. Shadows whispered dot, and somewhere deep in my chest, suspicion took root. I didn't know who to trust anymore. That night I lay awake in my apartment, staring at the ceiling. The scratches on my arm throbbed faintly, reminding me that the danger wasn't just outside, it was already inside me. I thought about Adrian, about his golden eyes, his protective presence, his half-truths, about the stranger who had appeared, her warning slicing into me. Trust. It felt impossible now, and yet the pull toward him hadn't weakened. If anything, it had grown stronger. I closed my eyes, trying to chase sleep, trying to find some peace in the storm of uncertainty. But all I could see were shadows, glowing eyes, and the fragile, complicated figure who had captured my heart and my bloodline. One thing was certain: choice of whom to trust, or whether to trust at all, would define everything that came next. The days after the strangers, warning, were worse than any nightmare I could have imagined. Every shadow felt alive. Every whisper of wind carried the hint of teeth or claws. Even the sunlight felt thin, unable to reach the depths of the fear pressing against my chest. It started small. A shattered window at the bookstore, no forced entry. Just glass broken in a perfect, deliberate arc. Then, strange messages scrawled across my apartment mirror in red. You cannot hide from what is yours. I wanted to call the police. I wanted to tell someone, anyone, what was happening. But the rational part of me knew. No human authority could help. This wasn't ordinary. Not by a long shot. And the worst part, my family. Even though my parents had been gone for years, my grandmother's health had worsened. She'd always been fragile, but suddenly I feared leaving her alone. Shadows moved just beyond her sight when she spoke, lights flickered when she walked down the hall, and the feeling of being watched was stronger in her presence than anywhere else. Whoever or whatever was coming after me knew my bloodline. They knew her too. I called Adrian, but he didn't pick up. I left messages that went unanswered. My chest tightened each time I imagined him unable to protect me, that it was only a matter of time before the shadows struck. That night, I returned home from the grocery store to find my apartment door slightly ajar. The pit in my stomach twisted into steel. My grandmother was already inside, trembling as if she had sensed them too. Elena, she whispered. They've been here. I felt it. In the walls, in the air. Don't go near them. Grandma, stay behind me, I said, trying to sound stronger than I felt. My heart pounded as I pushed past her and stepped inside. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. But then movement. A figure slipped from the shadows. Tall, cloaked in black, eyes glowing faintly red. My breath caught. The figure didn't attack immediately. Instead, it circled, predatory, studying me. You've been hiding, it hissed. The voice was soft but deadly. Your blood calls to us. I froze. Thea rooted me to the spot, but instinct screamed at me to move. I grabbed the nearest object, my grandmother's cane, and swung it desperately. The figure vanished into the shadows, leaving nothing but a cold whisper in the air colonne. Soon the attack confirmed what I already feared. My enemies were no longer hiding. They were moving openly, testing boundaries, feeling their way toward me. And Adrian, my protector, my dangerous golden-eyed world, was nowhere in sight. I spent the next day pacing, trying to decipher patterns, trying to prepare. Every sound made me flinch. Every stranger passing in the street set my nerves on edge. The forest, which had once been my refuge, now felt like a trap waiting to close. By evening, I knew I had to leave. I found myself at the edge of the woods, heart hammering, the last traces of daylight fading. My thoughts raced, and I realized how vulnerable I had been, how easily they had invaded my life, my home, my safety. A rustle, a flicker of silver in the trees. My pulse spiked. Adrian emerged, moving through the shadows with the fluid grace of a predator. His eyes met mine immediately. Gold burning through the dusk. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. His expression was grim, unyielding. They found you, he said, voice low, dangerous. And they're not stopping. Not now. I know, I said, though my voice shook. They were in my apartment, in my grandmother's home. I can't protect her. I can't. You won't have to. He interrupted, his tone sharp. But you need to trust me, fully, or this ends badly. I swallowed, gripping his coat as if holding on could anchor me against the storm. I trust you, I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I felt the weight of uncertainty pressing down. My heart wanted to believe, but my mind screamed. What if he can't save me? What if my blood is exactly what they want, and there's nothing anyone can do? Night fell fully, and with it came the realization that escape was not an option. Every path back to town was watched. Every road leading out of the forest seemed to twist unnaturally, as if the shadows themselves conspired to trap me. Adrian guided me to a small clearing, silent but alert. "We can't stay here," he whispered. "They'll be here soon." My stomach churned. "Then where do we go?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he crouched low, senses straining. The hairs on the back of my neck rose. Even from this distance, I could feel the eyes on us. The red glow, the whispers, the hunting intent. "They're close," he murmured. "Closer than ever." A snap of a branch behind us made me spin, heart pounding. Shadows darted. Movement too fast to follow. My hand trembled as I reached for Adrian. "I can't lose you," I whispered. His hand found mine, steady, reassuring. Yet the tension in his body betrayed the truth. We were outnumbered, surrounded, running out of options. And just like that, the forest, the shadows, the enemies, it all closed in around us, I realized, with a shiver that froze me to the bone, that there was no turning back. The world I had glimpsed, the one filled with golden eyes, prophecy, and danger, was now the only world I had, and I was trapped inside it. The forest had never felt more alive or more dangerous. Every step I took beside Adrian seemed to echo through the shadows. Every rustle of leaves a warning. Every whisper of wind a secret too heavy to ignore. And yet, in the midst of it all, the pull between us had become impossible to deny. I could feel it in the brush of his hand, when he guided me around roots and fallen branches. In the way, his gaze lingered longer than it should, silver catching the moonlight, drawing me in. In the brush of his breath when he spoke close, his voice low and vibrating in my chest. "Stay close," he murmured. But his voice held more than caution. It held something deeper, something unspoken. I nodded, my heart racing. "I'm not leaving you," he exhaled, a shiver running down his spine. And for a moment, the forest seemed to fall away. Just him, just me, standing in the moonlight. My pulse raced, and I felt the undeniable draw between us, the kind that had been simmering beneath every glance, every brush of fingers, every near touch since we met. I wanted him. I didn't want to want him, but the truth clawed its way to the surface. I wanted him more than I feared the danger around us, more than I feared the prophecy, the enemies, the darkness pressing in from every side. His hand brushed against mine, intentionally this time, fingers grazing lightly over mine. Heat surged through me, and I almost leaned into him, almost let the magnetic pull take me fully into his world. "You feel it too," he said, almost as a question, almost a confession. I can't stop feeling it," I admitted, voice barely above a whisper. My cheeks burned. He stepped closer, until the space between us was nothing. My breath caught as the intensity of his presence pressed against me. Every instinct in my body screamed to run, to flee, to protect myself. But every other instinct, the one that had been growing since our first meeting, screamed to surrender. And I almost did. His golden eyes locked on mine, fierce and wild, and I could see it, the same longing, the same impossible pull, the same forbidden attraction. The way the world seemed to tilt around us, the way time slowed to nothing, the way the forest seemed to hold its breath in anticipation. For a heartbeat, I thought he would kiss me. I leaned in, my lips parting, my pulse drumming a wild rhythm. Then, a sound shattered the moment, a sharp crack of branches, distant but deliberate, like a warning. Both of us froze. Adrian's head snapped toward the sound, muscles tensed, eyes narrowing. "They're here," he growled. The pull between us didn't vanish. At the moment of Forbidden's passion evaporated as danger replaced it. He took my hand, gripping it tightly, and pulled me back into the shadows. I stumbled slightly, heart still racing, not just from fear, but from the taste of the moment we almost shared. My entire body hummed with tension, and I realized that every near touch, every glance, every shared breath since we met had been leading to this. A line we weren't supposed to cross, and now, the line was blurred. "Stay behind me," he ordered, but there was no anger in his voice. Only concern, only raw protective instinct. I nodded, clinging to him as the forest around us grew restless. Shadows shifted. Movement darted in the corners of my vision. The predators or whatever had been hunting us were close. Too close. My pulse thundered not only from the danger, but from the ache in my chest. The ache for him. The ache for the touch we hadn't allowed ourselves. The ache for the Forbidden's connection that had only grown stronger under every threat. Every secret. Every moment of shared danger. He turned slightly, just enough to look at me without breaking stride. "We can't afford..." A low growl cut him off, vibrating through the trees. I froze. My stomach twisted. I wanted to run. I wanted to collapse into his arms. I wanted to deny every warning, every danger, and finally give in to the passion that had been simmering between us. But I didn't. Adrian's body stiffened. His eyes flared golden, sharp and intense. The growl repeated, louder this time, closer. I could see the faint glint of eyes in the darkness, red, hungry, and fixed on us. "Move," he commanded, and before I could respond, he swept me behind a thick tree, shielding me with his body. The wind shifted. I felt the weight of unseen eyes on us, the press of danger like a living thing. And in that instant, in the hush of the forest, I realized the truth. The attraction between us was no longer a temptation. It was a risk. A risk that could get us both killed if we didn't act up. My hand brushed his again, almost accidentally, and he caught it, holding it tightly, not as a gesture of romance this time, but as a lifeline. The forest trembled around us. The eyes in the shadows moved. The growl deepened, and then a figure leapt from the darkness, claws glinting under the moonlight. Hurtling straight toward us, Adrian reacted instantly. A blur of motion, but my chest constricted. The moment of Forbidden's passion, the ache between us, the longing, the intensity, it all collided with fear. I barely had time to realize it before I was yanked back. Hidden behind him, heart hammering, breath short, body pressed close against his. The night held its breath with us, the forest alive with menace. And in that suspended heartbeat I knew nothing would ever be the same. The pull, the danger, the Forbidden's connection, they were all unavoidable now. The forest erupted in chaos. Shadows twisted and lunged from every direction, the red glowing eyes of our enemies cutting through the darkness. The growls and snarls weren't just threats. They were prelude to attack. Every instinct screamed at me to run, hide, to curl into myself. But I was tethered to Adrian by something stronger than fear. Trust, desire, and an unspoken bond. "Stay close," he shouted, his voice cutting through the cacophony. I did, clinging to him as he moved like a predator, weaving through trees, dodging attacks that came too fast to comprehend. His strength was breathtaking, terrifying, mesmerizing. But even as he shielded me, I felt the precariousness of it, all one wrong move, and we would both fall. Then it happened. A shadow surged from above, faster than anything I could see clearly. Adrian's eyes flashed golden as he leapt to intercept it, leaving me exposed for a heartbeat that felt like eternity. I froze, terror rooting me to the spot, until a cold hand grasped my arm from behind. A familiar voice whispered, smooth and cruel, "You shouldn't be here, little one." I spun to see the woman from the clearing. Her eyes gleamed red, predatory, her smile mocking. Before I could react, she shoved me to the ground. Pain exploded in my shoulder, and I cried out, helpless, "Adrian!" I screamed. He turned, eyes wide, golden light blazing as he moved toward me with impossible speed. But in that instant, the woman vanished into the shadows. My fear, my frustration, my anger all collided into one sharp, choking scream. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to throw myself into his arms and never let go. But doubt slashed through me, sharper than any claw. He had let me fall. I pushed myself to my knees, trembling. "Why?" I shouted. "Why didn't you?" "Elena, get down." Adrian barked, slamming a shadowy figure back with brutal force. He looked dangerous, unstoppable, but the briefness of his intervention, it had been too late. Too slow. My mind raced. Had he truly misjudged the threat? Or had he chosen to save himself first? The forest exploded around us, branches snapping, shadows twisting, red eyes flashing in every direction. And somewhere, in the midst of it all, the woman watched. A predator enjoying the chaos she'd sown. I felt tears sting my eyes, not just from the fear or pain, but from something deeper. Betrayal. Not fully conscious betrayal, but the feeling that the man I trusted with my life had failed me in the one moment that mattered most. Adrian's golden eyes met mine across the chaos, full of urgency, but also something I couldn't read: regret, anguish, or cold calculation. "Why didn't you protect me?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Because His words were cut off by a surge of enemies pressing closer, forcing him to act. He grabbed my arm, yanking me behind a fallen tree, shielding me with his body. I felt the warmth of him, the closeness, but it no longer comforted me. I pulled back slightly. "No, I can't. Listen to me," he snapped, frustration and desperation lacing his voice. "If we don't move, we both die." I shook my head, fighting tears. "You let them. You think I would let them touch you?" His golden eyes flared, bright as fire. "Do you have any idea what I'm risking?" The words should have reassured me, but they didn't. They only deepened the fissure forming between us. I wanted to believe him, to trust him fully, but the fear, the vulnerability, the sting of being exposed when I'd thought I was safe, it had wounded something in me. I couldn't ignore the battle intensified around us. Trees cracked. Shadows lunged. I clung to Adrian as he moved, but my heart was no longer fully with him. Something had shifted. The bond that had felt unbreakable now strained under the weight of doubt, fear, and unspoken accusations. And then it happened. A shadow struck, aiming for me. Adrian reacted instantly, pushing me aside, but the momentum sent me tumbling down a slope. My arm scraped against rough bark, my ankle twisting sharply. Pain radiated through my body. I looked up. Adrian's figure loomed at the top of the slope, golden eyes scanning for me, face unreadable. I wanted to run to him. I wanted to cry out, but the fear, the pain, the sense of betrayal all held me frozen in place. Finally, he extended a hand. His jaw was tight, his eyes pleading. "Elena, take my hand." And in that instant, I realized something terrifying. I couldn't. Not fully. The trust between us had fractured. Not completely, but enough. Enough that I hesitated. The shadow surged again. This time, there was no one to stop it but me. I screamed, pain and fear mingling, and Adrian's expression shifted from desperation to horror. He lunged, but too late. The shadow struck me squarely, and everything went black. When I woke, I was alone. The forest was silent. The shadows had receded, or perhaps had merely waited. My body ached. My heart ached. And the space beside me, where Adrian should have been, was empty. I pressed my hands to the ground, trembling. The golden warmth I had clung to was gone. The pull, the forbidden's connection, the bond we had nurtured all felt ripped from me. And I realized the truth. Not all battles are won with strength. Some are won by absence, by separation, by doubt. I was alive. But Adrian, my protector, my danger, my impossible desire was gone. And I was alone. The forest seemed endless, swallowing me whole. Every step I took felt heavier than the last, the weight of pain, fear, and betrayal pressing against my chest. The golden warmth I had clung to the presence of Adrian was gone, leaving a cold emptiness in its place. I limped along the twisted paths, my ankle throbbing, blood prickling along the scrape on my arm. The echoes of the attack haunted me, the shadow that had struck me, the panic, Adrian's golden eyes as he lunged. And then nothing. He was gone. I stumbled over roots, nearly collapsing into a hollow, darkened grove. My breaths came in shallow gasps, lungs burning with each intake. The shadows around me whispered, shifting like smoke, twisting my fear into something almost tangible. I could feel their eyes on me, even if I couldn't see them clearly. Alone, completely alone, I sank to the base of a gnarled tree, pressing my palms to the rough bark as if it could anchor me to reality. My thoughts spiraled. What had I done wrong? Could I have trusted him more? Could I have moved differently, avoided the attack? The answers eluded me, slipping like water through trembling fingers. The prophecy, my blood, the scratches that pulsed faintly under the moonlight, they had all led me here. And now, the only certainty was that danger was closing in. A sharp rustle to my left made me tense, my heart jumping. I turned slowly. The shadows moved unnaturally, as if alive. They circled me. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to stand. Fear screamed, telling me to run, to hide, to give in. But some small, stubborn part of me refused to surrender. I had survived this far. I wouldn't let them take me without a fight. As I stumbled through the underbrush, I noticed something unusual. A faint, silver glow emanating from the ground ahead. Curious and desperate for direction, I moved closer. The glow revealed a small clearing I hadn't noticed before. At its center lay a carved stone, etched with symbols I didn't understand, but they pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. I knelt beside it, tracing the carvings with trembling fingers. A shiver ran through me. It felt familiar. Not memories, exactly, but a recognition deeper than thought. Something connected me to this place. Something tied to the prophecy, to my bloodline. And then I noticed it. A note, small and folded, tucked into a crack in the stone. My hands shook as I opened it. The path is never straight. Trust the blood that binds, and you will find what was lost. No signature. No indication of who had left it. But the message struck a chord deep inside me. The blood that binds. Me? Adrian? Both? My pulse quickened, and for the first time since the attack, I felt a spark of hope. I pressed on, guided by the cryptic clue. The forest remained hostile, branches clawed at my clothes. Shadows slithered just beyond my sight. But something had shifted. The fear that had threatened to crush me softened slightly, replaced by determination. I realized that despair could not win. Not entirely. The moment of separation, the pain of betrayal, the absence of the one I had trusted, it had sharpened something inside me. I was no longer just the frightened girl in the shadows. I was someone who could fight. someone who could survive, and perhaps someone who could reclaim what had been lost. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time felt meaningless in the forest. Exhaustion tugged at me, but the stone's message burned in my mind. I repeated it over and over. Trust the blood that binds. Trust the blood that binds. The words became a mantra, a lifeline. Even in the darkness, I could feel a flicker of connection, not just to Adrian, but to the prophecy, to my own hidden strength. I was not helpless. Not yet. A sudden movement made me freeze. From the shadows, a small figure emerged. My pulse jumped, but it wasn't one of the red-eyed predators from before. This figure was human, no, more than human. Ethereal, cloaked in silver light, eyes calm and steady. "You've come far," the figure said, voice soft but commanding. "The shadows do not yet hold sway over you. But you must choose. Fight forward, or let fear consume you." I swallowed hard, nodding slowly. I choose to fight." The figure inclined their head, almost imperceptibly, and then stepped back into the shadows. Where they had been, the forest seemed less threatening, the darkness receding slightly. A faint path glimmered where none had existed before, a subtle, almost invisible trail leading deeper into the trees. And at the far edge of the clearing, I thought I saw it, a flicker of golden light. Adrian. The sight made my heart leap, even though I knew it could be a trick, a shadow playing with my mind. That the spark of hope burned too brightly to ignore. Even in despair, even in danger, the possibility of reunion, of answers, of survival, glimmered like a distant star. For the first time in what felt like forever, I took a deep breath. My blood pulsed, faintly glowing against the dark. I was no longer just the prey in the shadows. I was someone who could act, someone who could fight. I would. The path through the forest glimmered faintly under the cryptic guidance I had found at the stone. Every step felt like a test, every rustle of leaves, every whisper of the wind, a warning that danger was still near. Yet I pressed forward, driven by the spark of hope I had felt when I glimpsed the faint flicker of golden light in the clearing. Hours, or maybe only minutes later, I came to another clearing. Moonlight poured through the canopy, casting silver across the ground. My heart caught in my chest. He was there. Adrian. He stood motionless, golden eyes scanning the shadows, muscles tense, every line of him radiating both danger and relief. But the sight of him, standing there in the pale light, scarred by the same battle that had left me reeling, was almost too much. My legs trembled, and I barely recognized the mixture of fear, longing, and anger that surged through me. Adrian, I whispered, my voice cracking. He turned slowly, and the instant our eyes met, the tension between us ignited. Relief, yes, but also hurt. Betrayal. Mistrust. The air between us vibrated with everything we hadn't said. The accusations. The doubts, the unspoken longing. "You're here," he said finally, his voice low, roughened by worry and exhaustion. "I thought I'd lost you." I don't know," I admitted, my throat tight. "I don't know if I can trust you. After everything." His golden eyes softened slightly, but the fire in them remained. "I would never leave you behind. You know that. You felt it always." "I felt it," I said, the words trembling. "But I also felt alone, abandoned. You were gone when I needed you." He stepped closer, slowly, as though giving me the space to decide whether to recoil or to let him in. "I should have been there sooner. I should have." His voice faltered, and for the first time, vulnerability broke through the usual intensity in his gaze. I didn't have a choice. I searched his eyes, trying to decipher the truth. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to be pulled back into the warmth and security of his presence. The pull, the magnetic, undeniable connection that had been building since our first encounter, was still there. Stronger, almost unbearable. And yet the sting of doubt lingered, sharp and insistent. Then why? I asked, voice barely audible. Why not tell me? Why not? Let me understand? Because I was trying to protect you, he admitted, stepping closer, the gold in his eyes brightening. You don't understand yet the danger. The things coming for you. For us. Sometimes, not telling you is the only way I could keep you safe. The words cut through me. The logic made sense, but my heart refused to forgive so easily. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. You can't just decide that for me. You can't just pull me into your world and then keep me in the dark. Adrian flinched slightly at my words, then closed the distance between us. His hand brushed against mine, gentle, deliberate, grounding, and I felt the pull of desire, fear, and longing all at once. You're right, he said quietly, almost painfully. I can't decide for you. I can only ask you to trust me. And I know it's not easy. I swallowed hard, my hands shaking, heart pounding. Every instinct screamed to push away, to protect myself from further hurt. And yet, I couldn't deny the way my pulse quickened at his nearness, the way my body remembered every touch, every brush of his hand, every shared glance. I don't know if I can, I admitted, voice breaking. Then don't say you can, he replied softly, almost a whisper. Just let me prove it. Let me prove that I would never leave you. For a moment, the world narrowed down to just us. The forest, the shadows, the dangers all faded into the background. His hand lingered near mine, fingers brushing, and the intensity of our connection pressed down on me. Forbiddance, dangerous, yet undeniable. I closed the distance just slightly, enough to feel the warmth of his chest, the steady beat of his heart under my fingertips. I want to believe you, I whispered. I know, he said, his golden eyes locking on mine. And you will. I promise. But for now, we need a pact. A vow. I frowned, unsure what he meant. A vow, he repeated, voice low and steady. No secrets between us that can't wait for survival. No lies, no half-truths. We face the darkness together, or we fail alone. Do you agree? I hesitated. The weight of what had happened, the danger that still lingered in the shadows, made me wary. But his gaze, the intensity of it, and the undeniable pull between us somewhere deep inside, one knew he was offering me more than protection. He was offering connection, trust, survival, and something I could not name, but already craved, not slowly. I nodded. I agree. He exhaled, a tension leaving his shoulders that I hadn't realized was there. Good. Then we move forward together. No more hiding. No more doubts. Not while the shadows close in. For a moment, we simply stood there, hands brushing, breaths mingling, hearts still raw from the events that had separated us. It was a fragile reunion, scarred by pain and mistrust, yet tempered by the undeniable pull that had drawn us together from the start. I realized then, more than ever, that this was only the beginning. Danger would come again. Fear would test us. Shadows would close in. But for the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel entirely alone. We had each other, and that was enough. For now, the forest felt alive in a way I had never noticed before. Every branch, every rustle of leaves, seemed to pulse with intent, as if the trees themselves were aware of what was coming. Adrian and I moved silently, side by side, senses sharpened. Hearts synchronized, but the tension between us was no longer just emotional. It was survival. The attacks had escalated. Shadows no longer tested boundaries. They struck with precision, targeting everything and everyone we cared about. Each encounter left scars on the body, on the soul, on the fragile bond of trust we had just rebuilt. And now, the final hunt had begun. We had tracked our enemy through the densest parts of the forest, following a trail of destruction and malevolent energy. The air shimmered unnaturally, charged with danger. I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't just another confrontation. This was the culmination of everything, the prophecy, the bloodline, the danger that had stalked me since the first shadow crossed my path. Adrian's golden eyes burned in the dim moonlight, his body tense, muscles coiled like a predator ready to strike. "They know we're coming," he said quietly, "and they've been waiting for us." My stomach twisted. I had faced fear before, but this was different. Every instinct screamed that we were walking straight into a trap. Yet the spark of determination inside me refused to let me turn back. "We face it together," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "No more hiding." He nodded, hand brushing mine briefly, a silent confirmation, a shared resolve. "Together," he agreed. The first sign of them appeared as we entered a wide clearing. Shadows shifted unnaturally at the edges of the trees, almost blending with the darkness itself. And then I saw him, the ultimate enemy. He was taller than any man should be, cloaked in black, eyes glowing a deep crimson that made my skin crawl. A predator in every sense, exuding power and menace. This was the one who had orchestrated everything. The one behind the shadows, the attacks, the chaos. My chest tightened. Fear surged, but alongside it was the undeniable pull toward Adrian, toward survival, toward the defiance that had carried me this far. "You've come," the enemy's voice echoed, smooth, deliberate, and terrifying. I wondered how long it would take. Adrian stepped forward, protective, defiant. "This ends tonight," he growled, his golden eyes blazing like fire. I felt my pulse spike, my heart hammering. I wanted to hide. I wanted to run. But the memories of every shadow, every attack, every stolen moment of danger and passion surged through me. I wasn't the same person who had stumbled through the forest alone. I had been forged by fear, by loss, and by love. And now, I had a choice. The enemy's gaze shifted to me, piercing, knowing. "Ah, the blood that binds. You were far braver than I expected." I flinched. This wasn't just a threat. It was recognition. A declaration that everything about me, my lineage, my connection to Adrian, my destiny was exactly what he had been hunting. "Stay behind me," Adrian warned, stepping between us. But I shook my head. "No," I said, firm despite the tremor in my voice. "I'm not hiding anymore. This is my fight too." He studied me, golden eyes narrowing, and for the first time I saw fear not for himself, but for me. But also pride. "You're ready?" he asked, voice low. "I am," I said. The air shifted violently. Shadows surged, twisting into forms almost human, almost beast, yet utterly unnatural. The enemy's army emerged, encircling us, the moonlight glinting off their claws and teeth. The forest seemed to close in, suffocating, testing our resolve. Adrian grabbed my hand, holding it tight, and the pull between us intensified, not just desire this time, but strength, courage, and unity. "We face them together," he whispered. "Yes," I echoed. And in that moment, fear was not gone, but it was sharpened into determination. The enemy raised his hand, signaling the attack. Shadows lunged. Branches snapped. Growls and snarls echoed through the clearing. My pulse raced, adrenaline surging through every vein. I had trained myself to fight, but I had never been tested like this. Every instinct, every heartbeat, every step mattered. I struck, dodged, and moved as if my very life depended on it, which it did. And Adrian was there, beside me, unyielding, golden eyes blazing, protecting and guiding. Every touch, every brush of our hands, every glance reminded me of the vow we had made the pact to face darkness together. The enemy struck directly, powerful and precise. Adrian blocked, but the force sent me staggering backward. Pain flared across my side, and for a moment panic surged. But I remembered the stone, the note, the spark of hope I had felt in the abyss. I remembered our bond, our vow. I couldn't falter. Not now. The enemy's laugh echoed, chilling and triumphant. So strong, yet so vulnerable. Let's see how long your little bond can last. I clenched my fists. The pull toward Adrian, toward survival, toward the destiny I could no longer deny, surged like fire in my veins. I raised my head, meeting his gaze. Together we charged. Shadows lunged, claws swiped, but we moved as one, coordinated, fierce, unstoppable. Our connection, the bond of trust, love and defiance, was our weapon. And yet, I knew the true trial awaited. This was not the end. This was the threshold, the final hunt, the ultimate confrontation with the enemy who had orchestrated every moment of terror, every test of loyalty, every forbidden glance that had pulled us together. I tightened my grip on Adrian's hand, heart hammering, breath ragged. "Whatever happens," I whispered, almost to myself, "I'm not turning back." He squeezed my hand in return, golden eyes burning. "Nor I," he said. The enemy stepped forward, crimson eyes fixed on me, shadows stretching unnaturally around him. The clearing seemed to shrink, the air thick with tension, electricity, and menace. I took a deep breath, feeling the pull of destiny, danger, and love all collide. My body thrummed with adrenaline, my heart with determination. Whatever came next, I knew I would face it. Not alone, not without Adrian, and not without embracing the truth of who I was and what I was meant to become. With that thought, I stepped forward into the shadows. The clearing felt smaller now, almost suffocating, as if the forest itself had drawn close to witness what was coming. Shadows twisted around the ultimate enemy, his crimson eyes locking on me with a predatory certainty that made my blood run cold. Adrian stepped beside me, golden eyes blazing, muscles coiled like a predator ready to strike. Our hands found each other instinctively, the connection anchoring me, grounding me against the storm of fear and darkness that pressed in from every side. "This ends now," he growled, his voice low and fierce. I swallowed hard, heart hammering. I wanted to step back. I wanted to turn and flee. But I couldn't, not after everything, not after the bond, the vow, the trust we had rebuilt in the shadows. The enemy laughed, a sound that cut through the night like a blade. "You dare stand here, blood of prophecy? You think your bond can save you?" I gritted my teeth. "It's not just a bond. It's more than you understand." Shadows surged forward, but we were ready. Adrian moved like lightning, striking with precision, while I dodged, countered, and drew on every lesson, every instinct I had honed since the first attack. Fear was still there, gnawing at the edges of my mind, but determination surged stronger. And then the enemy struck directly at me. His power was overwhelming, shadowy tendrils twisting, clawing toward my chest. I felt the pull, the almost irresistible force dragging me toward despair. My heart pounded, and for a moment, panic surged. Adrian! I screamed. He lunged, golden light blazing around him, intercepting the attack. The force sent us both staggering, and for a moment, I felt myself slipping, fear, doubt, exhaustion threatening to crush me. And then I remembered the note in the stone, the spark of hope in the abyss, the vow we had made. Trust the blood that binds. I had survived because I had embraced it, not denied it. The enemy's gaze sharpened, as if sensing my renewed resolve. You will pay for defiance, he hissed, advancing. I felt something awaken deep within me, a pulse of energy, connected to my bloodline, my destiny. I had denied it, feared it, hidden from it, but now it surged through me like wildfire. I could feel Adrian beside me, golden light mingling with my own, our combined force a shield and a weapon. We moved together, a perfect rhythm born of trust, love, and desperation. Every strike, every dodge, every connection of our hands or gaze drove the enemy back. But then, the enemy unleashed his full power. Shadows erupted around us, a vortex of darkness and malice. I felt myself caught in it, being pulled apart, body and mind straining against the inescapable force. Adrian shouted, and I realized what had to be done. I can't hold him alone. He yelled, You have to know. I cried, I'm not leaving you. That I knew the truth. This was my destiny's edge. The prophecy, the bloodline, the bond they had all led me here. And the choice was clear, even as my heart screamed against it. I channeled everything fear, love, anger, longing into a single blinding surge of energy. My blood pulsed, glowing faintly under the moonlight. Shadows shrieked, twisting, writhing, but I held fast, the force of my resolve cutting through the darkness like a blade. Adrian's eyes met mine, golden and fierce, and in that gaze, I saw understanding, pain, and something more, pride. I was not alone in this, even as I prepared for the sacrifice I knew I might have to make. The enemy roared, shadows lashing wildly, and in the chaos I made the choice. A surge of energy exploded from me, radiating outward, catching the enemy off guard. His form staggered, his power momentarily fractured. Now! I shouted to Adrian. He lunged, powerful and precise, striking the enemy with everything he had. The clash of forces shook the clearing, the forest trembling as darkness and light collided. Pain lanced through me, and I stumbled, blood pulsing hot along my veins, but I did not falter. I pressed on, focusing on the bond, the vow, the promise we had made. This was our fight, our destiny. And then in one final surge, the enemy fell, shadows dissipating like smoke, his power broken, retreating, or perhaps destroyed. Silence settled over the forest, heavy and trembling, as if the world itself exhaled. I sank to my knees, exhausted, trembling, body and soul on fire from the exertion. Adrian was at my side in an instant, golden eyes softening as he took my hand. We did it, he whispered, voice rough with exhaustion and emotion. I shook my head, breath ragged. We survived, I said, voice barely above a whisper. But at what cost? He drew me close, holding me tightly, and I felt the warmth of him, the certainty that we had endured. And yet, beneath the relief, I knew some part of me had changed forever. The prophecy, the bloodline, the danger, it had all demanded sacrifice. And I had faced my greatest fear. I had made the choice that had seemed impossible. For a long moment we simply held each other, the forest around us quiet, shadows retreating. The fight was over, but the aftermath lingered. Pain, scars, and the weight of destiny pressed down, yet the bond between us, forged in fear and tested by darkness, was stronger than ever. I don't know what comes next, I admitted softly. Adrian pressed his forehead to mine. Then we face it together. Always. Whatever comes, we face it together. I nodded, feeling the pull of the bond, the warmth of survival, and the undeniable truth. Love, loyalty, and destiny had survived the edge of darkness. And though the scars would remain, we were not broken. Not yet. For now, victory, loss, and transformation were entwined, but at the heart of it, we had emerged alive, together, and stronger than the forces that had sought to tear us apart. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I allowed myself to hope. The forest was quiet now, almost impossibly still. Moonlight filtered through the trees, painting silver patterns across the ground where shadows had once writhed. The battle had ended, the enemy vanquished or at least driven into hiding, but the echoes of what had transpired lingered in every corner of the clearing. Knelt on the cold earth, hands pressed to the soil, feeling the pulse of life beneath me. The forest had survived. I had survived. And yet, the weight of everything, every loss, every scar, every moment of terror and passion pressed down like 1,000 stones. Adrian stepped beside me, silent at first, golden eyes reflecting the quiet light. He reached for my hand, and I let him. The contact was gentle, grounding, a tether to the world and to the bond we had forged through fire, blood, and shadow. We did it, he said softly, almost reverently. Yes, I whispered, voice raw. But at what cost? He shook his head, gaze distant. Everything we've endured has changed us. But look at what we've gained. We're alive. Together. Stronger than anything they could throw at us. I studied him, the man who had been my protector, my danger, my impossible desire. He bore the marks of battle scars, fatigue, and something deeper, a shadow in his gaze that mirrored my own. And yet, beneath it all, there was warmth, love, and a quiet strength that had carried us through the abyss. You've changed, I said softly. And so have I. I can't go back to who I was before any of this. I don't want to. But I wonder if I can ever be the same as Himmy, the one you saved. Adrian knelt beside me, his hand brushing a strand of hair from my face. You'll never be the same, Elena. And that's good. Stronger, braver, wiser. You've faced darkness most could not even imagine. You've made impossible choices, survived the edge of destiny. And yet, here you are. Whole. Alive. You've become who you were meant to be. I looked into his golden eyes and saw not just love, but recognition of all I had endured. And in that gaze, I realized something profound. Our bond had survived everything the world, the shadows, and destiny itself had thrown at us. The clearing was littered with remnants of the battle. Scorched earth, broken branches, and the lingering shimmer of dissipating magic. I took a deep breath, letting the night air fill my lungs, and thought of everything we had lost, friends we hadn't saved. Shadows that might rise again. Moments of innocence gone forever. But I also thought of everything we had gained. Trust forged in fire. Love tempered by danger. And the undeniable knowledge that we were stronger together than apart. Adrian squeezed my hand gently, sensing my thoughts, and I leaned against him, feeling his warmth seep into me. I don't know what comes next, I admitted. The prophecy. The shadows. The bloodline. It's never really over, is it? No, he said, voice low but steady. But now we face it as one. Whatever comes, we meet it together. That's the difference. That's what we've earned. A smile tugged at my lips, faint but genuine. The fear that had haunted me, the isolation, the despair, they hadn't vanished completely. But they no longer ruled me. I had learned to walk through the shadows, to survive them, to turn fear into strength. And beside me was Adrian, the constant, unyielding presence who had fought beside me every step of the way. We walked slowly from the clearing, hand in hand, leaving behind the remnants of chaos. Every step was deliberate, each movement a quiet assertion that we were alive, that we had endured, and that we were ready for whatever the future might hold. And yet, as we emerged from the forest, I felt the weight of the past pressing gently against me. The memories of danger, the moments of passion and fear, the losses and the victories. They were no longer chains but echoes, reminders of what had shaped me, haunted me, and ultimately strengthened me. Adrian stopped and turned to face me, eyes shimmering with the golden light that had always drawn me in. That had been both a warning and a comfort. "We're different now," he said. "Not just because of what we faced, but because of each other. You've changed me, Elena, more than anyone or anything ever could." I pressed my forehead to his, feeling the warmth of his breath, the rhythm of his heartbeat, and the undeniable pull that had defined our journey. "And you've changed me," I whispered. "Forever." The night stretched around us, quiet except for the soft rustle of leaves. The darkness that had once threatened to consume us now seemed softer, almost protective. We had survived the trials, faced the shadows, and emerged with our bonds stronger than the forces that had sought to tear us apart. And yet, there was a haunting beauty in the quiet. The echoes of everything we had endured lingered, a reminder that love and loss, fear and courage, are forever intertwined. I took a deep breath, letting the memory of every trial, every battle, every stolen moment of connection and longing settle into me. And in that stillness, I understood something profound. Our story would never truly end. It would live in the shadows, in the echoes of the forest, in the pulse of our blood, and in the bond that had survived destiny itself. I turned to Adrian, a smile touching my lips despite the lingering ache of our scars. "No matter what comes next," I said, voice low, "we face it together. Always." He nodded, eyes glinting with the golden fire that had saved me more times than I could count. "Always," he echoed. We walked into the moonlit night side by side, hearts entwined, scars and all, leaving the past behind but carrying its echoes forever. And in the silence that followed, I felt it a whisper of eternity, a resonance of love, danger, and destiny intertwined. The world had changed us, but it could not break us. We were bound forever